Okay, welcome back. We're going to talk a little bit about supply, demand, and government policies. The first place to start is a refresher on binding price floors and price ceilings. So let's look at a graph with supply and demand. And let's go ahead and again, we're talking about supply, we're talking about demand, and we're talking about government policy. Now, what government policy? You're going to talk about market interventions. Now, that sounds like something coming into the market from the outside, and it is. It's the government policy interfering or interjecting or assisting or stepping into the market. My libertarian nature makes me want to say interfering first. So we've got what would normally be price at equilibrium here, quantity at equilibrium here, and let's draw a line like that. That's from the outside. And let's say this is a price floor. All right. As you guys know, this equilibrium is like a magnet. Everything wants to go down there. Everything wants to go down there. It wants to come up. It wants to come up. Everything wants to go to equilibrium. Well, if you are setting a minimum price, meaning you can't pay less than this for this good or service, you can't go below this. So when you can't get to equilibrium, keep in mind that's where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. That's equilibrium. You are here in disequilibrium. So we have disequilibrium, which means quantity supplied does not equal quantity demanded. In fact, quantity supplied drops down here. There's your quantity supplied. So if you're going to make more on something, you're more willing to supply that if you're a supplier. So you move from this quantity supplied to over here. All right. See, we cross the supply curve here. So our quantity supplied is here. And if you're having to pay more for something than you normally would, so this is the market value of whatever this is, and your minimum price is up here, your demand, because it's more expensive, is going to go down there. So what you have is a situation where quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded. When you have more supply than you have demand, you have something called a surplus. Now, what's the example here? What is an example of a surplus? Well, it's some minimum price. Well, our example is minimum wage. Really, wait a minute, wage isn't a price. Yes, it is. Your wage is the price for your time. And the federal government determines the federal minimum wage. Local governments can determine higher minimum wages, but they have to be above the federal minimum wage. Nothing can be below the federal minimum wage, so that's a minimum price. And so when we have a situation where quantity supplied and quantity demanded do not equal, in this case supply exceeds demand, so we have a surplus, who are my suppliers here? Well, your suppliers are minimally skilled workers. And your demanders are firms looking for minimally skilled workers. Okay? And when your supply exceeds your demand, your supply is labor, this surplus is unemployment. If you've ever bought anything and you felt ripped off, you felt like you paid too much for it, you don't buy that thing anymore, you buy less of it. Well, the same thing is true of your labor. If an employer feels like you're not worth your wage, they will get rid of you or they want to hire you in the first place. So a binding price floor prevents you from going down to equilibrium. So if a floor was down here, it wouldn't be binding because we're not trying to go down here. But this is a binding price floor. In the next video, we'll talk about a binding price ceiling.